Hey artists, guess what? Today we're going to do some art from Peru. We are going to make Peruvian smiling alpacas that focus on line, value, and texture. Hopefully you've enjoyed looking at the assignment page before you've clicked on the video, and then hopefully you liked the video on alpacas. So let's go a little bit about alpacas in Peru before we get going on this project. Alpacas are a vital part of Peruvian culture, Peru is in South America. When the Incas ruled the area about 600 years ago, alpaca's fleece was a major form of currency. Remember, currency means money. Even more important than gold or silver. Instead of fur, alpacas have fleece, which can be spun into yarn and used to create various textiles. Alpacas have the largest variation of colors of any other animal with fur. Their natural fleece can be found in 22 different colors, ranging from white to black and many shades of brown and gray in between. The fleece can also be dyed to create vibrant colors that are found in Peruvian textiles. Alpacas adorned with brightly colored tassels and pom-poms are often involved in celebration. Lastly, in Peru, they even celebrate National Alpaca Day. So on your assignment page, hopefully you were able to check out the different alpaca pictures I put up so you can see what they look like while they are in that National Alpaca Day festival. Usually they dress up their alpacas on that day in, the really bright colors and the tassels and flowers and pom-poms and all really awesome, beautiful embellishments. So for our project, we are going to make a smiling alpaca, all right? And you notice there's even some 3D elements involved with this project. Now, before we start the project, let's go over the supply list like I normally do. For this project, you're gonna, of course, need your paper. I recommend thicker paper because this project is a painting project. You're going to need some tissue paper of different colors if you can. Now, if you don't have, let's say, art tissue paper, see if you have any leftover tissue paper that you may use for gifts, like the tissue paper you put in a bag, in a gift bag. You can use that. You can even get some white coffee filters and color them and then spray them with water a little bit, and the dye from the markers will spread out so you can make your own kind of tissue paper. And then you can always use construction paper or any other paper that you have to create the flowers and the tassels, which are the ones done with the tissue paper. You probably could even do the tassels with like leftover fabric scraps. All right, you're going to need oil pastels, for sure black, and then you'll be picking whatever color it is that you would like for your alpaca. Remember, if you don't have oil pastels, you can always substitute them for crayons, okay? But when you use a crayon for the watercolor resist, remember that's where you paint over the oil pastel. When you're using crayon, you really want to make sure that you press firmly down on the paper, and you even want to go over the line or designs that you made more than one time to build up the crayon so that it will shine through or come through the watercolor. And then, of course, like I've been talking about, you're going to need your paint, your watercolor paint. If you don't have paint, that's fine. Remember, you can substitute with those basic supplies like crayons, colored pencils, markers, but you still need to adhere to the grading rubric and all of the elements you should be adding. So you'll see that with the paint we'll be doing different values, but we're using the same color. You're going to need some glue. I highly recommend liquid glue for this project, as you're going to be needing to glue down some bigger, thicker things. You can use a glue stick and possibly tape if you don't have liquid glue. You're going to need scissors, and then you're going to need your pencil and the eraser, and you may need to use a black marker if you don't have a black crayon or a black oil pastel. So right now, go gather your supplies. Remember, you need paper, tissue paper, oil pastels, glue, scissor, pencil, eraser, watercolor, and then, oh, lastly, you need some string and a stapler. Forgot to mention those. If you don't have a stapler and you don't have string, that's fine. Later in the video, we'll talk about how you can substitute the stapler. For the string, if you don't have any string or yarn or twine or any of that, last resort, you can always use dental floss if you don't have string. All right, go gather those supplies. Come on back and we will begin the first part of the project. All right, welcome back. Here is my example, and I'm going to be using it as a reference throughout the project. I want you to pay attention to the large scale that I've made the alpaca. You are going to draw the head, and then we'll be drawing some of that long neck that they had. We'll be using some value scales, so you'll be making some of the areas of your alpaca a little bit darker and some a little bit lighter. And then we're going to be adding some embellishments. We got some tissue paper, flowers, and then we have those tassels. And remember, they really use embellishments on their alpacas when it's National Alpaca Day or when they have alpaca festivals. So we're going to make a fun, really whimsical alpaca. Now, when we go to the different steps, you'll see that my alpaca is purple, and that's fine. You can either, decide to make more of the realistic colored alpaca, or you can go on the fun side and pick, a bright, bold color. You'll also notice that my background is contrasting the purple, so it's making it pop or stand out. If I did a purple alpaca, I don't want to do a purple background or a blue background. I want to do a color that's going to make my alpaca pop or stand out. Many of you might know to use complementary colors. So if you're looking at the color wheel and you choose orange, the complementary color directly across from orange is going to be blue. Now, you can kind of play around with your contrasting. So if I'm using purple and I'm looking at a color wheel, the complementary color is actually yellow. But yellow and orange are very close. So I threw in the orange to kind of have this bright orange component. And that's going to help pop out my alpaca. Okay, we're going to get started on drawing the alpaca, and this is going to be part 1 of this project. Remember, you can always pause the video and draw the different parts of the video and come back at other times. You don't have to sit and do the entire project in one go. You can definitely pause and come back. So the first part is we're going to be drawing the alpaca face and neck, and then you will also see you're going to be adding some of the texture. Now, on the assignment page, you have this visual, and this is the how to draw guide, the drawing guide for the alpaca. You can go ahead and stay on with me if you'd like, and I will walk you through the steps on how to draw it, or you can go ahead, pause the video, look at the steps that I have posted on the assignment page. Maybe you need to print it out, and draw it yourself without my guidance. That's totally up to you. For those of you that are going to stay on and do this drawing step with me, go ahead and grab a pencil and a black oil pastel. We're going to draw things out with pencil, and then we're going to go over our pencil lines with pastel this time, because there's quite a few little details in there, and I don't know about you, but I don't really draw alpacas that often, and so I like to be able to use my eraser if I make a mistake or I need to adjust sizing. Okay, ready? Go ahead and get your paper, your pencil ready. For those of you that are going to go draw the alpaca on your own and not watch the guide, go ahead and pause this video. And then once you're done drawing the alpaca with your pencil, come back and we'll talk about the oil pastel. Okie dokie. One more reminder, it should be pretty big, right? The size of the paper. Here we go. Step number 1. Draw a large upside down triangle in the center of the paper. Add 2 U shapes on both sides and extend the lines out a little bit. So I'm going to locate the middle of my paper. Now when I'm drawing, I like to move my paper so that I can get better angles when I'm drawing. I don't usually keep it straight. So go ahead and move your paper if you need to. You want to locate the middle area of your paper, and you're going to draw the nose, okay? So that upside down triangle part. Remember, you can always pause the video while you're adding the different elements, okay? And then restart when you've added your element. So I got my nose, and then we got to do our U shapes. Now I'm going to just make a little line in the middle, and I'm going to turn my paper upside down because that is a little bit easier for me when I go to make my curved lines. And I'm going to curve up, and then I'm going to make a little line out, and do the same thing on the other side. Curve around, up, and out. Perfect. Okay. Now I have my mouth starting, my nose starting. Okay. Step 2. Add another U shape for the inside of the smiling mouth. Then repeat with a larger U shape for the jaw. So right here you're going to be adding a U shape. And then you're going to leave some space. And you're going to add the rest of it, which is kind of like the chin area. Okay, so I got that. Perfect. Step number 3, we are going to draw angled lines inward from the end of the smile. Repeat on the other side. Add 2 vertical lines for the bridge of the nose and add the eyes. So if you are looking at the example I have on the assignment page, this is the step we're doing. So we're going to do a little bit diagonal line. We're not going to go all the way, but towards the middle. Okay? And then we're going to do 2 vertical lines. They're not going to go all the way off the paper, right? Because we still have lots of things left to add to the alpaca. And then you're going to go ahead and add your eyes. Again, I like to move my paper when I'm going and I'm adding curves. I find it a little bit easier to control. I want to kind of make sure I pay attention to the spacing, like where I've put my eye and how close to this line, so that I know where to go on the other side. Alright, so I have my alpaca. If I need to make any adjustments, remember you can always pause the video and make your adjustments. Okie dokie. Moving on. Step number 4. Draw 2 long curved ears that extend almost to the top of the paper. Leave some room around the face for the puffy alpaca fleece. So we're drawing our ears right about here in this area. And we're going to do those curved lines. Curve and then back down. Now if you have more space at the top, you can go ahead and push your ears out. They don't have to look exactly like mine. And I'm going to curve around. I got my ears. They almost kind of look like horns. So if you're seeing it look more like a horn, go ahead and round the top and then bring it back down. Round the top if it's pointed and then bring it down. And then of course you can go back and erase anything you need to. Okay, number 5. So this is where you're going to need to start maybe slowing down on your drawing. We're going to be adding these zigzag lines, and they're going to go all the way to the chin. So notice they're kind of bent going down the points, but you're doing those zigzag lines and you're moving towards the center. You're doing kind of like a U shape, but with zigzag lines. Use zigzag lines to draw a thin neck to the bottom of the page. So after you do the face down to the chin, you're going to then add the neck. So again, I like to sketch real quick out what I think I like for the fur. And I like to move my paper so I can get different, angles on it. So go ahead and draw your fur that's going down the side and it's going towards the center, okay? And you may need to adjust, how wide you make it, or if you made it too thin, or if you need to push it down, okay? So this part is a part where you may end up needing to pause a little bit more and adjust your sizing. So I kind of made mine, I think, a little too wide on this side compared to this side, and maybe I made it too long because I still want to have room for step 5 and 6 where I'm adding the neck and I'm adding that puff of fleece. All right, so go ahead, pause, do step 5 where you're adding the sides and the chin and the neck with those zigzag lines. Once you're done with that, come on back and we'll do step 6 where we're going to add the puff right here and we're going to add the insides of the ears. All right, welcome back. So notice that I took my time and I went through and I adjusted my alpaca's face, the fur, and then I added that long furry neck. Also, I kind of sketched out where I wanted the side of the alpaca's head's fur to lay, because remember we're going to be going over it with the black oil pastel. And then I adjusted the eyes on mine because I decided, maybe I put them too high. So that's definitely why we're using pencil for this project. Next, we're going to add a puff of fluff of the fleece. So right here, you're going to add a puffy fluff of fleece, say that fast, right, on top of the head using those curved zigzag lines, right? Then on the inside of the ears, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to curve and you're going to use your zigzag lines down to create that texture. Remember, you can always move your paper around while you're doing this. So you're going to add your tufts of hair, your little puff of hair around your alpaca, and it can, overlap some things. You can move your, paper as you are drawing. That's what I like to do. I feel like I have way more control that way. And if I don't like something, then I can easily, erase and adjust, right? So we're going to go here, and then we have a little bit more of a tuft. So go ahead and make your tuft of hair. right here. Boop, boop. And then you're also going to add that in the ear. So you're going to curve, and then you're going to do kind of like a zigzag line down. Do that on both. Add the little puff of hair in the inner parts of the ear, and then come on back with your black oil pastel. Welcome back. Welcome back. All right, we have completed our alpaca drawing with pencil. So, like I reminded you, go ahead and grab that black oil pastel, and you're going to go over all of the lines with black, and you're going to color in the nose black. So remember, trace, always pressing firmly down with the pastel, because we are going to be painting over it. And then make sure you really color in the nose, outline all the pencil marks with black. Once you're done with that, come on back and we will talk about how to add the texture element to our alpaca. Outline everything in black at this time. Okay, so you have outlined your alpaca now with the black. Now, before you move on, go ahead, grab your eraser, whatever eraser you're using, and go around and find any of those pencil marks that are still visible. Maybe you made some adjustments like I did when I went and added the pastel. Be careful not to get the pastel on your eraser, because we don't want to erase and then all of a sudden our eraser turns into a smudging tool and we smudge our work everywhere. So be careful when you're going around erasing any of those pencil marks that you can still kind of see. All right, I'm going to tap this. Okay, so now you are going to pick pastels, but you're going to pick 2 pastels that are in the same color family. So if you're going to use pink, maybe use pink and like neon pink or bright pink, or maybe you use pink and peach. So remember, the alpaca can be your fun, whimsical colored alpaca, or you can go ahead and do a more traditional colored alpaca with your browns, your grays, with your traditional, and whites, but we're not going to do white, with your traditional colors. I'm going to go ahead and focus on a fun color like I did the example on, which I had originally used purple. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a different color scheme this time. I think I'm going to go with blue. And you do need to use 2 different versions of whatever color you're choosing. So if I chose blue, then for my blue color family, I'm going to need to pick different types of blue, at least 2. So I kind of have a teal, and I have a neon blue, and then there is even a regular blue. And that's just what I have access to. So maybe you only have access to 2 blues. Or maybe you only have access to 1 blue, so the next closest color you could use would be what? Purple, right? Or maybe a dark green. And we're going to be adding on the, what do you think? What do you think we're going to be working on? Adding the, what are we missing? The texture, right? The fur. We need to add those elements onto our alpaca. So if you're looking at the assignment page, there's a bigger picture of this, but you're going to be adding your curved lines to create that implied texture. So remember, implied texture is how something looks like it would feel if you could feel it. And you're going to be doing that on the neck, along the face, along the ears and the tuft, and then in the middle section where you have like the snout or the nose area. And notice that you're not like going over the eyes totally, and you're not going over this whole area. You're just adding those different elements of texture, and you're going to use your multiple colors that are in the same color family to give it some more dimension. So I'm gonna do some of the texture. I'm gonna kind of show you, and it's a, you know, you can do little curved lines, you could do bigger ones, and you're just gonna make it look textured, right? Like it is fur. Now you'll go around and you'll add that. Once you get to the neck, you can go ahead and even add some extra black, kind of curved, pointy sections like we did for the outside to give it, you know, a little bit more texture or fur elements. So you'll add your texture, and you want to make sure you incorporate the different shades or the different, you know, types of versions of the main color you chose. So again, here I chose blue, so I'm, you know, mixing up the fact that I have access to some teal, and I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to add those lines. Remember, you need to add your texture around the entire alpaca, the face, and the neck. There is an example of one on your Canvas assignment page, so you can totally go and look at that if you need to see some more texture examples. Right now, take your time, pause the video, add all of your texture, come on back, and we will talk about how to paint in a value scale with one color for your alpaca. Perfect. So now at this step, you have completed part 1 of the alpaca project. So you can choose to stop here and come back later and do the next part, or you can continue on with me and complete section or part 2 of the alpaca. Now part 2 is going to be where we're going to be painting in our alpaca. And when we go to add the paint to the alpaca, we're going to be painting with one color, and we're going to focus on creating different values of that color. So values is the lightness or darkness of the color. You can create those different values with watercolor by altering or changing the amount of water you use when you paint. So less water you have on your paintbrush and more paint is going to give you a darker value of that color. If you apply more water to the paper or your paintbrush and less of the pigment or the color, it will make it the lighter value. So I'm going to demonstrate how to do that. Remember, lots of water will create lighter value, while using less water and more paint will result in a darker value. Alright, so the color you should be using is whatever color you chose to do the texture in. So my alpaca is blues, therefore when I go to add my paint, I'm going to be using blue. Go ahead, get your paint ready, get your water cup ready, come on back once you're all set and ready, and we will do the painting, and I will demonstrate how to do the value scale with your one color paint. Ready? Here we go. We're going to do some painting. So I'm going to demonstrate that value scale I was talking about with our watercolors. Now, there's lots of different techniques you can use for watercolor. And one way I like to get that light value, I like to do a wet on wet application. So that means I have water, clear water on my paintbrush, and the area that I want to be lighter, I'm just going to do a layer of plain water in that area. Just going to wet the paper in the area that I want lighter. So now I know that there is a lot of or enough water there. Then I'm going to just grab a small amount of my blue watercolor. I don't need a lot because I'm trying to create that lighter value. And I'm just going to kind of place it around right on top of that water that I put down. And I'm going to spread it out in just that section because I only wanted that section to be a bit lighter, right? Now you're going to choose, your other areas that you want lighter. So for example, I recommend the mouth, the inside of the mouth being a little bit lighter, so that means you add more water and less of the color of paint. Then you're also going to want to create areas that are darker. Now the darker areas is of course less water with more paint. And usually I don't do wet on wet. I do dry on wet. So then I'll grab make sure I have not very much water on my paintbrush. And I'll go ahead and I will paint the area in directly onto the dry paper with my darker version. Remember, the less water you use, the darker your value will be. And then you can let it dry a little bit, and if you want it to be even darker, you're just going to go in and add another layer over that area that you want darker if, was too light. So now I'm going to give you some time. You're going to go ahead and add your value scale with your one color. So remember, lots of water creates this lighter value, while using less water and more paint results in that darker value of your color. So go ahead, paint your alpaca face and neck, and then come on back and we'll talk about the background and how we're going to be doing that part. Alright, so you should have painted your alpaca with your value scale. I will be looking for that when I go to grade it. So make sure you have areas that you use the lighter version of your color, and then you have some areas that are a little bit darker. You're having your value scale from light to dark. Now you're going to need to pick a contrasting background color, and you're just going to pick one color. So remember I talked about the color wheel. The contrasting color tends to be the complementary color. And remember, complementary colors are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. So for example, if I made my alpaca red, then the contrasting color to best use would be green. If I made my alpaca yellow, then your contrasting color is going to be purple. If I made my alpaca blue, then across would be orange. So go ahead and determine which color you are going to use for the background of your alpaca. It needs to be a contrasting color. If I did a blue alpaca, I'm not going to do a blue background. I am going to do a contrasting color. Now you can play a little bit with your contrasting color. So if I'm blue, my contrasting color is going to be orange. But in the orange family, I have the red orange and I have that yellow orange. So you can, do something like that. That's fine. Just don't want to make it the same as your alpaca. So again, I'm going to go with my wet on wet approach, which means I'm going to apply a layer of just the water onto the background, and I'm going to go all the way out to the edges. Okay, I want to make sure I've painted everything. I don't want to leave any areas white. Then I'm going to go ahead and grab my contrasting color that I'm going to choose, and I'm going to go with kind of that yellow, and I'm going to blend and push that yellow all over my paper. Now I may, see how it's not popping up so much, I may need to go over it a little bit more so that you can really get the pigment, you can really get the color onto the paper. So right now, pick your contrasting color for the background. Remember, it's one color only. Paint your background and then come on back and we will talk about how to create those tissue paper tassels and tissue paper flowers for our embellishment part of this alpaca project. So hopefully at this point you have completed your value scale painting on the alpaca and you have also completed your contrasting color for the background. So right now you can go ahead and either pause the video and come back at another time and finish the project, or you can stay on with me and we're going to do part 3 of the project. So for part 3, you're going to go ahead and move your painting away and let it dry because we are going to now start creating our flowers and our tassels. So you'll need to go get your tissue paper or whatever type of paper you are using to create the flowers and the tassels. You're going to need to get your glue, some string, and your scissors. Once you have all of those items, come on back and we will start learning how to make those flowers and tassels to be added on as embellishments to our alpaca. Okay, so right now you should have the supplies to add on the flowers and the tassels. So we are now on part 3 of the alpaca project. Make sure you got your glue, your scissors, your stapler if you have a staple or tape, and then you're going to need your tissue paper and some sort of string, yarn, even dental floss works. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate how to do one of each, and then you are going to pause the video and go create them and glue them on. So if we look at the example on the canvas page, so this one, you'll see that there are many areas in which you can add the tassels and the flowers to. You can create the flowers at the top of the head. You could put the flowers on the neck. You could have tassels hanging off the ears, or you could have tassels on the neck. So it's going to be up to you where on your alpaca that you're going to add the tassels and the flowers. You need to make sure that you add the flowers and the tassels. Go ahead and get ready to begin. First, we're going to start with the making tassels part of this project. Now, this visual is also on the assignment page, so you could easily look at this image for extra help or print it out, have it next to you, whatever you need. So for the tassels, you're going to be cutting out squares. Now, it says 4 half squares or larger. So I liked to actually make some squares that were different sizes. So I kind of made like a bigger square, a medium set of squares, and then a smaller set. And you want to do a couple different layers of color. So for your square, you want to try to use, between 2 and 4 different colors, because then it gives you that really beautiful coloring pop. And then when we go to pull them out, right, you have all those really beautiful colors popping out. So first, go ahead and grab your tissue paper, whatever sets of tissue paper you're going to be using. And I have red, pink, light blue, and blue. And I'm going to cut out at least 3 sets of tissue paper. And like I said, I like to make them in different sizes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut, and I have my small set, and I'm not going to separate them. I'm going to keep them in a pile, put it to the side. Then I want to make a bigger square. So I'll go ahead and cut my bigger square out. And again, I want to leave it together in a set because you want to have, you know, between 2 and 4 different colors. And then I'm going to end with kind of my medium size square. It can be a little bit on the rectangle side, that's fine. And I can always take it and cut it down, right, if I want it a little bit on the other different size. Okay, so I have my sets. I've made at least 3 sets of different size tassel. You can totally use the same size. I just liked giving the variety. So then you're going to grab your string or your yarn or dental floss, whatever you have, and you're going to cut a couple pieces of it because that's what you're going to use to tie. So what you'll do is you'll cut some of your yarn, then you're going to layer the pieces. So if I told you to keep them already together, which makes it easier. You will take your pointer finger and you're going to take your set. So decide which color you want on the outside of the tassel or on the inside. And you're going to put your finger in the middle and you're going to press the tissue paper down your pointer finger. You're going to squeeze the rest of the paper around, okay? Then you're going to remove your finger and you're going to hold it still so it's still in that shape you squeezed. And you're going to grab your yarn and you're going to tie the yarn around the top of the tissue paper, leaving the bottom open. So I like to tie it, and I put it down for some more control. I tie it towards the top, and I'm going to double knot it so that it stays. I'm going to tie it again. All right, so now I've tied it, boom. And now I have one of my tassels, okay? Now the next part is you're going to use the scissors, so grab your scissors. You're going to cut lines up from the bottom of the opening right here of the tassel. And don't worry if some of the pieces, you know, get cut off by accident or fall off. Then we're going to fluff, then we're going to fluff the bottom. So let's simply take our scissors and we're going to cut up. We're not going to cut all the way, right? We want to leave some. You can make, you know, thinner lines, you can make thicker lines, shorter or longer. So I've added about 4 different cuts. Now I'm going to kind of fluff it all out. So I want to pull some of the tissue paper out. I like to kind of put my hand in it and do this motion to really push some of that tassel out, okay? So that's your process for your tissue paper tassels. You can do the same thing with paper, right, or the coffee filters or even magazines, right? So you're going to fluff it and you're going to make about 3. You can make more if you want, and of course they can be different sizes. So right now, go ahead and finish making your tassels. Remember, this visual is on the assignment page for you to look at while you're making your tassels if you need help. Once you're done making your tassels, come back, put those to the side, and we will go over how to make the paper flowers. All right? Have fun. I love this part. So hopefully you had fun making your paper tassels. Remember, you should have made at least 3. Now we're going to be using tissue paper again, and we're going to be making the flowers. So we're going to be using the tissue paper to make 3-dimensional flowers, and it's pretty simple and it's fun. And when I started doing it, I felt like I just wanted to make a ton of them. So what you'll do is you're going to, again, take some color of your tissue paper and you're going to cut some squares, And again, you're going to want to have a couple different layers of your tissue paper. I would go, anywhere from 2 to 4. And you can make them various sizes when you cut them out. Don't make them too small because it gets a little bit tricky when we have to pull out the different pieces to make the shapes of our flowers. So I'm going to demonstrate how to do one, and then I'm going to have you go make the rest of them. So let's see, I'm going to do my 3 colors, okay? I'm going to put them together, line them all up, and we are going to do what is called a fold accordion style. So it's like folding a fan. So what you'll take your tissue paper, and you're going to fold some of it, crease, then flip it over, fold again, flip it back over, fold again, and then flip it over and fold again. And you'll do that process until it's all folded up with that fan or that accordion style fold. Next, what you'll do is you'll grab your stapler and you're going to put a staple in the middle. Okay, so I have my staple in the middle. Now, if you don't have a stapler, you could put some tape around it or some string around it, or again, dental floss. Now, you're going to need to do some trimming of the edges. So you're going to want to grab your scissors and trim the open edges. And it's fun to do like either a triangle, a zigzag, or even a rounded look, because that's going to be the tips of your petals. So I'm going to go with a rounded, and you can do a triangular or zigzag or whatever, okay? Next, you're going to hold the flower so one color is on top. Pull up the top layer of the tissue paper. And you're going to do this, and you're going to go all the way around, and you're going to be pulling each layer at a time. Now, you may have to kind of open it up a little bit to start, and you want to separate the layers of color. So I want to pull my, my purple out, whatever color. I want to pull my blue away. And sometimes it's a little tricky with your hand. So I like to kind of wet my fingers a little bit, and that will help separate it a little bit easier. And I'm going to go ahead and do that on both sides. And here we go. We are pulling it apart. Now I want to decide which color I want to be the middle of the flower. So I'm going to go with this like purpley color. And I'm going to start kind of pulling my other colors up a little bit towards that center to kind of make my flower. And I can even scrunch a little bit on the back and fluff up my flower. And remember, you can make, maybe you want to make a whole bunch of smaller ones, or maybe you want to make different sizes, like small, medium, large. That's totally up to you, okay? But you need to make at least 3 of the paper flowers. So once you're done with the paper flowers, you're going to come back, and we are going to talk about applying the tassels and the flowers. So we're almost done with this project. All right, remember the visual directions are also on the assignment page in case you need a little bit more understanding or help. All right, go ahead and make at least 3. Of course, you can make more. And then come on back and we'll talk about the application of them. Have fun. You might find yourself making a whole bunch of them because it's very simple. Okay, yay, you've made it to the final part of the project, which is where we start putting everything together to complete our alpaca. So we are going to be now adding the flowers and the tassels, and that's really going to make your Peruvian alpaca stand out. You're going to be adding textile texture that can be felt, okay? So you're going to be applying real texture, and that's going to be those tissue paper flowers and tassels that you made. To make that tassel necklace, so here we have the tassel necklace that I made. You're going to need a larger piece of string, and you can simply tie on your tassels to that yarn so then they're hanging in the one piece, and then you're going to go ahead and glue it on to the neck. Now remember, we talked about the fact that you can put the tassels and the flowers on different parts of your alpaca if you'd like to. So remember the example, see, we got some tassels hanging off the ears, or we have the tassel necklace, or we have, you know, the flowers on the neck, or the flowers on the head. Maybe you just want to, you know, your 3 flowers on one side. That's up to you how you apply your textured pieces, which are your flowers and your tassels. Again, this picture is on the assignment page for you to go ahead and review. You're going to want to make sure that you really add some of the glue. Remember, I said to use liquid glue. It's a little bit better when it comes to adding or to making the tissue paper stick. So for example, I'm going to take my tissue paper flower, I'm going to pick a spot, and I want to do my flowers on my head. I really liked that look. And I'm going to add my glue. So I'm adding my glue, and then I'm going to want to add just some glue around the back of my flower. And I will go ahead and press it down. And I can kind of, you know, press like maybe the back layer a little bit more onto the paper so then it's gluing. And then I can adjust my tissue to, you know, the different direction or way in which you want the tissue flower to look, right? Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my tassel. And remember, you should have at least 3 of those. And you can pick, you know, where you want to add your tassel. Once you're all done, you should have an alpaca very similar, right? You should have the texture on the alpaca. You should have outlined the alpaca with your black. You should have at least 3 paper flowers and at least 3 paper, tassels. Remember to cut the tassels towards the bottom, and when you glue them on, you're going to want to fluff them up. Remember to glue the flowers on, and you want to have multiple colors, right? I said between 2 and 4 different colors. Make sure you've also painted your contrasting background. Remember, if your alpaca is purple, the background should be different. It should not be purple. It should be a color that makes your alpaca stand out, a contrasting color. Once you are completed, go ahead and let it dry, because you're using the liquid glue, and some of you may know that if you hold up something with liquid glue, it can have a potential to slide. So go ahead and let it dry. For the tassels down here, you want to make sure that you press when you do the glue, and then what I like to do to make sure that it really sticks is I grab something a little bit heavy and I put it on there while it's drying. Then I can, you know, once it's dried, I can lift it up and I can re-fluff, you know, the bottoms of the tassels. All right, have fun adding the tassels and the flowers, and then when you're all done, double check the grading rubric and take a clear picture or turn in a clear video of your smiling alpaca inspired by